everyone. Thanks for coming back into another episode of Winning Bets. I'm your host, Jason Mattis, as always. Today's episode brings us to the Bundesliga because we've got sports are coming back. Real sports are coming back. The last few episodes, we've talked about some of the free fantasy games that have been going on during this pandemic that have helped us fill the void. Now we're getting actual sports. The Bundesliga back this Saturday. Serie A is coming back in June. Basketball is coming back in a few weeks. It's going to be some great times here with sports returning back into our lives. And for me personally, it's soccer leading the way, and I love soccer. What we're going to be talking about on today's episode is the Bundesliga and the return coming this Saturday. We'll talk about the season and where things were when it was abruptly ended about mid-March. And then I've got two bets for us to make this weekend, two winning bets for us to go ahead and cash this weekend. So when things resume this weekend, we'll be at match week 26. That means there will be 9 games remaining as there's 34 games in the Bundesliga season. So 9 games remaining. When things resume on Saturday, it'll be 66 days, guys. 66 days since the ball has been kicked in the Bundesliga. That's a really long time. I know we've all had a tough time with this pandemic, but like I said, soccer and other sports are coming back 66 days since the last time it was kicked off. Let me go ahead and talk to you guys, give you guys a little refresher here about the table, where it was. If we have a look at the table, Bayern is sitting up there at top with 55 points, followed right behind them Dortmund with 51 points. Leipzig was in third with 50 points, and if we round out the Champions League spot, Borussia Mönchengladbach, and I always screw that name up, Mönchengladbach is with there at 49 points. Let's look at the table a little bit further and go to the Europa League spots. Leverkusen and Schalke round out the Europa League spots. And then if we look at the bottom of the table, Pepperdorn, Werder Bremen, and Dusseldorf are the teams right now fighting for relegation, fighting for their Bundesliga safety survival in terms of next season. So that's the table from top to bottom. We don't really need to worry about the middle positions because those top and bottom is what teams strive for and have aspirations for next season. So that's what was going on domestically in the Bundesliga. If we look outside of the Bundesliga and what teams were doing in European competitions, let's look at the Champions League first. Leipzig had already advanced to the quarterfinals. They took on Tottenham in the round of 16. They beat Tottenham pretty convincingly. I know Tottenham didn't have Harry Kane, so that was hurting their chances, but Leipzig with the 1-0 and 3-0 win were looking really impressive there and defeating Tottenham and advancing to the quarterfinals. Bayern, they haven't quite advanced to the quarterfinals yet, but they played Chelsea in the first leg at Chelsea, dominate them into a 3-0 victory that night. Davies, let me tell you, in my mind, he was the best player on the pitch that night. He was up and down that left flank, putting in crosses for guys like Lewandowski and Narby to convert on the other end and score goals. So Bayern looked really good. They'll advance to the quarterfinals. And Dortmund was unable actually to advance to the quarterfinals. They lost their second leg to PSG 2-0, and then they lost the aggregate total, which was 3-2. And I think that game, we'll talk about it here a little bit later, but that game will provide some insight into what maybe this season could look like going forward, because that game didn't have any fans in attendance. It was cool watching it, at least from, not ever getting to hear the communication on the field between players and coaches. I know, obviously they're speaking in French and German, but you could kind of understand with the player movements what was being said, even though you couldn't understand it. So that aspect was cool, but it definitely impacted the game because the first leg was really competitive 2-1 at Dortmund. The second leg in Paris was all Paris. Paris dominated them. And I don't think that happens with fans in attendance, and Dortmund's able to have some of their supporters there traveling to Paris. But with no fans, no supporters in attendance, PSG dominated Dortmund, and they were advanced to the quarterfinals, so they're out of that competition. If we go ahead and look at Europa League, Leverkusen, Wolfsburg, and Frankfurt are left in the Europa League. Leverkusen and Frankfurt are looking pretty good to advance to the quarterfinals. And then Wolfsburg, they have a little bit of work to do if they want to advance to the quarterfinals. So that's what was going on outside of Germany and some of your top competitions. If I may touch on a little bit, just for here splits, I actually don't know if Europa League and Champions League are going to be completed this season. It's easier for French, the government, well, they've actually canceled their season, but the German government or, English government, it's Spain government to put a season and resume a season. But when you have international traveling going on, I'm not sure Champions League and Europa League will be finished, but that's where those clubs were when, play was halted back in mid-March. So what's been going on since mid-March, since they haven't had any action? Well, the players have always been working on at home at their own discretion, but they've also been back in training. It was about early April where German government officials allowed the players allowed to back into their facility. So early April, and Bayern was one of the first teams that had their players come back and perform workouts and training on the pitch. Started off in individual training sessions. It slowly built into small groups, and now we have full team training sessions as we approach games this weekend. If you are maybe looking at a game, I'll give you one little helpful information or a little tidbit of information. Werder Bremen, due to the Bremen state in Germany, was one of the last teams to resume training. It would be allowed to come back into the facility due to the Bremen state and their regulations. So I'm staying away from that game because every other game is kind of equal with when teams had their players come back into the facility. But Werder Bremen, I just don't know how much of an advantage, disadvantage, maybe Bayern Leverkusen will have in that game against them. So I'm staying away, but that's a little bit of maybe a little hint, a little piece of information guys can have if you're eyeing that game to bet on. One of the cool things that'll actually be happening, I am so fascinated to see what's going to happen here with this, guys, is when players score. We've all seen when players score, they run to the corner of the field and they celebrate and they hug and they embrace. Maybe they even run over to where their supporters are and hug and embrace them. But the regulations here in Germany, you're not allowed to do any of that. You're not allowed to touch and embrace and hug like they normally would. They will let you have contact with your elbows and feet. Elbows and feet. So you guys seen the handshakes. The guys, they do all the they do all the things. These guys, since they've known that this policy was put into effect a few weeks ago, these guys have been working on the training pit. They're working. There's gonna be something with elbows and something with feet when they're gonna be tapping those suckers. So I'm really excited to see what happens when we get some goals that are gonna be scored this week and how guys celebrate. It won't be what we're traditionally used to seeing, but I think guys will full on embrace these new celebration rules, and they're going to come up with something cool. So look for some really innovative elbow and feet handshakes per se that these guys do. That's going to be really cool. All right, guys, so that's what's been going on in the Bundesliga here in the break, and that's where things left off when the season ended. So let's get into the two bets that I'm making and that I encourage you to make, because both of these bets are going to be winning bets. So join me, guys. Join me. All right, so the first one's going to be a 3-leg parlay. I'm taking the 3 best teams in the league. They're the best teams for a reason. They have the best players. We don't really know about form because of the 66-day layoff, but all things equal, I'm taking the best teams. You have to parlay them because the odds individually are about minus 200, minus 322, and minus 454. If you play those individually, you will not make money in the long haul, because one loss is just going to eliminate all your winnings and maybe even set you back into the red. Remember, at minus 110 odds, you have to hit 52.3% of your bets to be successful over the long haul. So playing these games individually, you will not be a successful bettor in the long haul. You'll inevitably get some losses, and they're going to hurt you, and they're going to bite you big time. All right, so if you look at the first team in this 3-legged parlay, it's going to be Dortmund versus Schalke. I didn't talk about Schalke in the standings earlier, but they're sitting in 6th place with 37 points. Dortmund, as we know, they were eliminated from Champions League. This game was played 0-0 back in October, but Dortmund didn't have Haaland. She was arguably going to be their best player right now. Maybe you make a case for Sancho, maybe being one of their better players, but don't kid yourself. Haaland is their best player. They signed him in January, and there's been no adjustment time for him in this Bundesliga. He has hit the ground running, scoring all kinds of goals. So you got Haaland, Sancho, we've got Hazard and Can and Mario Götze. Dortmund, the far superior team over Schalke. Look for them to win this game. And alluded to it a little bit earlier, they have the experience of playing in front of no supporters. So where maybe Schalke's going to come and, kind of be like Dortmund was against Paris, they're going to be a little shell shocked in that environment. Dortmund won't be like that. They've got the experience. So in this parlay, this is the closest matchup in terms of teams in the standings, and I like Dortmund being the better team, and I like their experience of having played in front of no supporters. So that's the first team in our three-legged parlay. The second team on our three-legged parlay, again, guys, I said we're going to ride the three top dogs in the Bundesliga. Leipzig versus Freiburg, another game on Saturday. Freiburg is 8th in the standings with 36 points. Freiburg actually won back in October 2-1, but Leipzig has really hit their form, after the turn of the year. Like I said, they're in Champions League. They've already made it to the quarterfinals by beating Tottenham. They have Sabitzer, which is their team captain. He scored in Champions League. He's an outstanding player in the middle of the pitch. He holds down the middle of the pitch and just does an excellent job. And they have Timo Werner, an excellent goal scorer. Timo Werner, we don't know what this summer transfer market's going to look like, but if it's any other summer transfer market, this guy's getting sold for top money. There's rumors maybe he's going to go to Liverpool. We know the economic impact that the pandemic has put on clubs across, across the entire world. So we don't know how that's going to impact Timo Werner. But in a normal summer transfer market, this guy was going to attract big dollars for Leipzig. So better players against the better team. Let's go ahead and take Leipzig and our second team in our three-legged parlay. Who's the third team? You guys guessed it. It's no brainer. It's going to be Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich is playing Union Berlin, the 11th place team. They're sitting there with 30 points. Bayern already won this game 2-1 back in October. We've mentioned how hot they are, at least in Champions League, rolling over Chelsea in the first leg of that game. I've touched on Davies. We all know they have Lewandowski. They have Mueller. They have Narby, Coutinho. They have Koeman. I mean, nobody's disputing how much superior Bayern's going to be. They shouldn't lose, and the reason, odds makers even back them up at minus 454 odds. So Bayern's going to be the third team here in our three-legged parlay. So Dortmund, Leipzig, Bayern, you're going to get that at plus 140. So those three teams at plus 140. I told you guys about the minus 110 and what have you, and how you can't take the high odds. Plus 140, excellent odds. You don't have to win every parlay at those odds to be profitable. We're going to win. This is going to be a winning bet, but I'm just saying at plus 140, you can afford some losses. This one won't lose. It's the three best teams, but you can do that at plus 140. That's how I talk to you guys about strategizing and making parlays and making them work. So that's going to be a winning bet. Our second and last bet that we're going to do this weekend, it's going to be in that Bayern game. And it's going to be, and this is where I've done the research for you guys. You guys don't need to do the research. I've put in the time. And check this out. So a common prop bet in soccer is, will both teams score? You got yes or no, will both teams score? The no in this is minus 130. So let's just say you put a $100 bet on both teams to score no at minus 130. That's going to pay you $77. There's another prop bet that says, will Bayern Munich keep a clean sheet? And that one's at minus 115. So if you put $100 on that, you're going to win $87. And that's what I'm suggesting you make this bet on and follow me in doing so in that winning bet. Because it's a $10 difference, but it's a huge difference over the long haul. I've got that. I've talked about reduced juice, and this is kind of an example here of reduced juice. Because if you're making this bet, the more common bet is, will both teams score? And that's what people go to instantly when they think there's going to be a shutout. But I've done the research and I dug deep, and I've seen where Bayern on a clean sheet is minus 115. Now, you could get screwed, right? You could win the both teams to score bet, but then lose the Bayern one if Union Berlin is the team that wants to hold the shutout. You're not doing either one of these bets thinking Bayern's going to be the team that doesn't score in this scenario. Whether you're doing both teams to score or the clean sheet, it's because you're thinking Union Berlin will not put up a goal in this matchup. So go ahead, will Bayern Munich keep a clean sheet at minus 115? That's going to be the better odds in terms of profit for you guys, and that's another winning bet. So let's do a recap on our two bets. We're going to do Dortmund, we're going to do Leipzig, and we're going to do Bayern Munich with a three-legged parlay at plus 140. And then we're going to do a prop bet of will Bayern Munich keep a clean sheet at -115. So those are the two bets for this weekend. It's going to be an exciting weekend. Sports are coming back, guys. Hey, thanks for checking out this episode of Winning Bets. Go ahead, drop a comment in. You guys know I love to talk about soccer, sports. I love to talk about betting. So drop a comment in the section there, and I'll get back to you guys. Go ahead and subscribe to the video, and let's enjoy the soccer this weekend, and let's enjoy some winning bets. We'll see you next time, guys.